we don't even know how to free ourselves from it. Okay, so all these exiles, and as long as Moshe is exiled in Erev Rav, in Judaism, Erev Rav domination, Moshiach Ben Yosef is exiled into Christianity, the concept of, and that light. And then the vessels of peace are exiled into Islam. I've spoke about this. We need to unite together. So what we've got a situation, as far as I'm able to perceive, the light of the name YHWH within the Torah, within the letter of the Torah, revealed within the letter of the Torah, is exiled in some way within Judaism at this time. The forces of the Erev Rav. The light of the name YHWH, as revealed above the letter of the Torah, is exiled into Christianity, Edomite exile. Those two lights come together, the light of the name YHWH come together with the stick of Yehuda and the stick of Yosef come together with Moshiach Ben David as one stick. Okay, so we know from Islam there is no mention of the name YHWH. It's called Allah, and that Allah is very much connected to. There's in Hebrew the word Allah means to go up, and that's a verb very much associated with King David, because there's one particular verse where it mentions him going up 3 times. Allah, Allah, it mentions that word Allah, to ascend, to go up. I'm pretty sure the name in Islam is like the fact that he's the most exalted. Allah is the most exalted. So it's very much connected. And even the name, the leaf on the tree, the highest part of the leaf is called an aleh, something like that. Okay, so it's all connected. It means the most high, the most exalted. But that is very much associated with King David. Okay, so if the light of the name is not, the light of the name YHWH is not to be found anywhere in Islam, because they don't use the name YHWH in any way. The Christians do, the Jews do, because they have revelations. They are containing the light that represents the soul. Why? Because in Judaism it's predominantly Jews. They are Erev Rav Jews who are not true Jews, but predominantly Jews, predominantly from the house of Yehuda. Okay, there are others beside the Levites and the Kohanim. Well, they are Kohanim are Levites, but there are others besides Benjamites and things like that. But they're predominantly classed as Yehuda. Okay, the predominant people within Christianity, I'm talking about the true Christians, and I'm not talking about the Amalekites who have attached themselves to it, or the Edomites that call themselves Christians and nominal Christians. I'm talking about the true Christians who bear witness to that light that has been received. They have received a revelation of the name YHWH above the letter of the law. Okay, predominantly the lost house of Israel. So Israel represents the soul. Okay, Islam is a global religion. It's like Christianity. Yeshua even says, "I came only for the lost house of Israel," but he's obviously gathered others beside. Islam is much more global, but it doesn't reveal the name YHWH in it. So it's not to do with the soul. It's to do with the body. What's the body? The body is the vessel. Okay, so the potential within Islam, and it's even called the religion of peace. The potential, just like the potential within Christianity, is to reveal the name YHWH above the letter of the law, the truth, and to reveal the true Hebrews stuck in that system of exile, and likewise the Jews, and the vessels are contained within Islam. Okay, and where are they? And the vessels really, and that's Melech David, King David, Moshiach Ben David. That is the vessels of peace, because he says, "Ani Shalom, I am peace," and he brings peace between the Israel and the nations, between body and soul. That's the final redemption, isn't it? The redemption between the unity between body and soul, the unity between male and female aspects of divinity, the unity between Israel and the nations, the unity between Yaakov and Esau. Okay, we need those vessels of Shalom. And where's the potential for that hidden? It's in Islam. There's a purpose. YHWH has not wasted his time with 1 billion people, all serving him. Really, truly serving the God in the way that he has revealed himself to them. He didn't reveal himself to them through the name YHWH. Why? Because they're predominantly of the nations. You understand? So he doesn't reveal himself in a way that is not in tune with their soul, and because Yisrael represents the soul, the nations represents the body, the vessels that light must fill up with. So there's got to be a unity between Israel and the nations. Okay, so this is This is about Moshiach Ben David in exile, and I've just explained a little bit. The purpose of Islam is ultimately, we will ultimately unite as one. There will be Israel and the nations. It's absolutely will happen, and because one is not complete without the other at all. One is not complete without the other, and so Yisrael filled. We've got this here, 2,295 is 5 times 459. So this got an ordinal of 459. Okay, right now, the concept of Israel is in exile. Why? Because the people who recognise and say and state within the religion of Judaism who Israel is, say that we are only Israel. So that's not the truth. Christians say, oh, we have replaced Israel. Not all Christians, okay? This is replacement theology. It's been a big part of the doctrine for a long time. That's not the truth either. The truth is there are true Hebrews within Judaism, and there's true Hebrews and true Jews, true Bnei Yisrael within Christianity. So it's absolute fact. And there is even true Bnei Yisrael within Islam. To what degree, I don't know, but there's like the lost house of Israel within the Taliban, that's well known, and within the Pashtun tribe. Okay, so these trace their lineages back to, they identify themselves as the lost house of Israel. I know that for a fact. Okay, so, but I'm talking about predominantly, because there's people of the nations within Christianity, and it would look like there's people of the nations that call themselves Jews, and they're possibly not true Jews. So there is a little bit of a mixture, but I'm talking about predominantly. I'm talking about the predominant reality within Islam is that they are of the nations. The predominant reality within Christianity is that they are the lost house of Israel. The predominant reality within Judaism is that they are Jews of the tribe of Yehuda and the Levites and things like that. So redemption is really the truth about who Yisrael is. And not only Yisrael the people, Yisrael the land. Because right now, what's called Israel is not the true land of Israel. It's much greater than the land that we have at this time. And with Moshiach Ben David, all these will be revealed. The whole extent of the land house of Israel, and the whole extent of the land of Israel, and that light that Israel represents the soul, the light of the soul when it unites together, the whole house of Israel. When the Jews and the Christians unite together, they will create a light that the entire nations will be able to fill up with. Okay, the entire nation, there will be Shalom, and the people that have been creating that vessels of Shalom predominantly are the Muslims, and through their vessels of Shalom, the entire of the nations will be filled with the light of that unity. From the true Jews and the true Christians, it's ultimately a revelation of the name YHWH. It's not about us. Let's get that right. We are just people that are able to bear witness to the light and the glory of the name YHWH. And when we are acting in our true capacity as Hebrews, then it's not difficult for the people of the nations to receive that light. What they won't receive is our fake light. They won't receive this because they're not stupid people, and they never was created to receive that. They will receive the true light, okay, and it'll be all glorious, because then will be peace between Israel and the nations, and Melech David will be king over all. And we can't have one without the other. You can't have light and no vessels to fill. You can't have Yisrael and no nations. You can't have a soul and no body. Okay, it's as simple as that. You've got to understand God has got a bigger plan than us on our own. Right, the water for swimming. This is taken from Ezekiel 46:5. It actually spells Moshe. I'm not going to go into too many details here, but basically this is linked up to it's linked up to the 153 fishes in the dragnet in one way or another. A couple of verses preceding that from Ezekiel 46:5, there's the verse where it talks about the great sea and many fishes, and Jerome in his commentary said that this verse is specifically relating to the 153 fishes in the dragnet, and I've done an analysis on that particular verse, obviously, because the 153 fishes in the dragnet, if you've ever listened to any of my teachings, it's very, very significant. I think it will come up in this teaching now, but a couple of verses later you've got this, the water for swimming. I think it mentions that it's difficult to get through that water, and you know, going back to what I said about Metatron, you know, I think there's possibly some connection. I haven't really thought it through, I've just come up with it now. So Ha'mayim me saw who the water for swimming. We've got to get across this river that is Metatron to get to the other side, to be true Hebrews. Perhaps there's some connection there. I wouldn't be surprised, because look at the initial letters spell Moshe, who was drawn out of the water as well, weren't it? The River Nile, which is one, I'm pretty sure that's one of the rivers that represented Metatron. You know, it's the river separated into 4 heads, didn't it? And one of them was the River Nile. So Moshe was drawn out of that river, you know, and we've got to get across that river. We've got to get to the other side. We have to be Hebrews and get to the other side. So here's where we've got the mouth of the earth, and it's related to this, which symbolises King David on the vessels of Shalom that need rectifying in order to fill up with the light. And it's all been done in a very hidden way, just as it was done in the very hidden way in the life of Yosef. Okay, so 459 is 3 times 153. There we've got the connection again, haven't we? But the mouth of the earth comes to 386, which is Yeshua. Okay, this is from PK Avot, the mouth of the earth that swallowed Korach, 459. So we can see Korach's rebellion is connected to all the concept. The hidden way in which YHWH is through the concept of the Moshiach that is Moshe, the Moshiach Ben Yosef, and Moshiach Ben David, because we can see in this verse it's connected to the exile of Moshiach Ben David. And in this, it talks about being in the tents of Kedar. You know, my soul has dwelt in the tents of Kedar. And, you know, this was very, very distressing for... this was very, very distressing for King David. And Kedar is the tribe which Muhammad came from. Okay, but there's also positive revelation regarding Kedar. I'm just going to read this where it says from the tents of Kedar. I'm just flicking through to find it now. So you've got some understanding. It said, this is Psalm of Ascent 120. A song of ascents to Hashem. In my distress I cried, and he answered me. Hashem rescued my soul from lying lips and from a deceitful tongue. What can he give you, and what can he add to you, O deceitful tongue? You are like the sharp arrows of the mighty, with coals of rotem wood. Woe unto me for my drawn out sojourn. I dwelt with those who inhabit the tents of Kedar, long as my soul dwelt with those who hate peace. Ani shalom. But when I speak, they are for war. So it's given us a big indication that Moshiach Ben David is dwelling, exiled in the tents of Kedar. Okay, which is Islam. And like I say, there's purpose in all this. Everything is exiled. Everything is exiled until his glory is fully revealed, and we are not there yet. We are subject to exile by the will of YHWH for a very great reason, to give us the right to earn the reward, to be able to receive that he desires to bestow upon us. So 353 is very much related to the concept of the fishes in the dragnet, 153 fishes in the dragnet, which I can't go into details now, but basically that was a sign. 153 comes to Kof Nun Gimel. That's how we would say it in Hebrew. And there's a part of Tanakh which the initial letters of Kof Nun Gimel, if you do like a text search, there's not many instances where Kof Nun Gimel come up, but one of the most specific instances is Corona Gam, call out now also. Okay, that comes to 153, the initial letters, Kof Nun Gimel. And that word corona is obviously very, very much like the coronavirus. So we are told specifically to call out now also at a specific time. And that's to bring the soul of Moshiach. That's when we have to advocate, Start advocating now. Talked about the advocacy. Advocate for all the good Moshiach Ben Yosef has done. Because how did Moshe draw the bones of Yosef out of the Nile? He said to Yosef, 2 ways he said. He said, you know, the golden plate, with its short alay on, cast it into the Nile, and this like Kabbalistic amulet brought up the coffin, but then the Kabbalistic amulet that was used to bring up the coffin of Yosef became the golden calf. The Erev used it to create the golden calf. Okay, so that is not advisable to do it that way. What was the other way? Moshe and Segula stood on the banks of the Nile together, Segula Sarach Bat Asher, and she said, he said, my Yosef, petition YHWH with all the good you've done. And after that, the bones came up and they was able to leave exile. So we've got to understand this is the power of advocacy, and that's why that we had that connection to Michael, didn't we, who's the ultimate advocate. He's looking for the good instead of the bad. So the 153 is call out now also. We've been given the sign. When do we call out now? Well, Corona. When the coronavirus is absolutely impacting the entire world, and the forces of the evil elites and the Erev Rav are in absolute full power and swing, enforcing all their evil shepherd surveillance over the entire of humanity. That's when you call out now. Call out now. Call out for what? Call out to God for the good that has been done by Moshiach Ben Yosef in exile. Okay? Bring his bones up. And I've said this before, we're not raising the bones of Yosef up anymore. We're raising the entire system of redemption up. You know, we're raising the entire messianic system up. They're what the bones of Yosef are. We're raising up from the hidden place that it is, the concealed place that it is now. We're bringing that into full revelation. What's that? That's the entire messianic system where YHWH is absolutely and totally supreme, and we as Hebrews are able to worship in. That's ultimately what we are. We saying no more. We're rejecting this Metatronic system where the slave rules, and we're putting the king in there instead. So we really raising up the throne of Moshiach Ben David. That's what we're raising up this time. So we have got if we want to see the Moshiach Ben David won't come till his throne's established, and that's buried in and hidden in this world at this time, fully concealed. We need to raise it up. We need to raise up that throne of David. So really the bones of Yosef now is the throne of David. We've got to raise that up, raise that whole messianic system up, and dominate over this Metatronic slave that rules, and put the true king there instead. Okay, so that's all connected to 153. It was the last sign that he gave to his disciples. He'd been crucified, he'd ascended into heaven and descended. So that's the 153, and it will come across that as well. And that was the last sign that he gave to his disciples, his 153 fish in the dragnet. So that was the sign. He's basically saying, I'm going down into Edomite exile now. At the right time, you see these 153 fish at the right time, call out for me now. Also, call out now also. Okay. And here we've got the connection here, look. Who was ascended into heaven and descended? 153, that's the ordinal. So, May Ele Shamayim Wayered, who was ascended into heaven? Moshe and Yeshua ascended into heaven. And the life of Moshe is 120, the life of Yeshua is 33, add them together, 153. They both ascended into heaven. Moshe ascended into heaven to get the tablets of stone. Yeshua ended in, but then descended into Erev Rav exile, and he's been suffering in that until the time of final redemption. And Moshiach Ben Yosef is suffering in the Edomite exile till final redemption. So 765 is also the same as Shalach Moshe Avdo. He sent Moshe his servant. What did he send him to do? Well, he sent him to suffer in order to redeem the lost holy sparks that needed redeeming from exile. So together, the 153 and the 765, both of those are multiples of 153. So that's 5 times 153, and that's 153. So in total, they come to 6 times 153, and 918 is 2 times 549. So linked up to all these, okay, which are all in exile currently. So the 386 there is Yeshua. for the sake of your life. This is talking about circumcised heart. Circumcised heart is related to King David. The circumcised lips related to Moshe, the prophet of the. There's three offices with which YHWH's sovereignty is established on earth as it is in heaven: the prophet, the priest, and the king. Okay, so these represent three aspects of circumcision that we need to go through. Talking about personal circumcision, but like the circumcision of Adam, the overall circumcision, all humanity together. So the circumcised lips, the office of prophet, that's Moshe, connected to Moshe. That's Moshe as king, Moshiach of YHWH. Two aspects to that. One that we must do below, like Moshe had to go and speak to the children of Israel, and he says, I'm of uncircumcised lips, so God helped him. He sent him Aaron. So there's two aspects to circumcision of the lips. One, what we do ourselves, and the help that we get from above. Circumcised male anatomy, there's two aspects to that. There's the outer crust, the outer thick aura, the foreskin, and then the thin inner membrane. Okay, so there's two aspects of circumcision. Then there's a circumcision of our heart, two aspects to that. We're told in the Torah, circumcise your hearts, and we're told God will circumcise our hearts. So there's two aspects, the bit that we do below and the bit that's done from above. And it mentions when they circumcise your heart for the sake of your life. Okay, for the sake of your life. Okay, so we can see there's a connection here. And this is the circumcised heart. That is connected to Moshiach Ben David. That's the king over kings, isn't it? That's Moshiach. Moshe represents the office of prophet. Like I've mentioned about the priest, Moshiach Ben Yosef is the office of the priest, a priest forever according to the speech of Melchizedek. And then Moshiach Ben David is the office of the king over kings, because the other two are kings also, but he's the king of the kings, isn't he? And then YHWH is the king over kings of kings. So for the sake of your life is also connected to Moshiach Ben Yosef, because Moshiach Ben David begs and prays for the life of Moshiach Ben Yosef to be saved. He begs, and even in the Shemona Esrei, there's a particular prayer that the rabbis say is related to Moshiach Ben David asking for the life of Moshiach Ben Yosef to be spared. His prayer is answered because Od Yosef Chaim, Yosef is still alive. Okay, but he becomes the throne with which Melech David sits upon. So for the sake of your life, circumcise your heart. It's connected to that union between Moshiach Ben Yosef and Moshiach Ben David. And as we can see, it's connected up here as well to David in exile. Our circumcised hearts in exile. We've got to finish the job. And you've got to remember that the Muslims do actually go through circumcision. Circumcision of the the male anatomy. Okay, so the luminary, 252 plus 45 is 297. So the luminary is an appellation for the Moshiach, 297 connected up here. Okay, and then this is the mouth of the earth, as written in Torah. Arose et pia. So it's even connected to all this concept as well. It's the mouth of the earth. It's Moshiach Ben Yosef, by the way. 792 plus an ordinal of 99 Sarah, and that is 8 times 99. That's 1 times 99. Together they are 9 times 99. 3 times 297. So back up there as well. 99 is quite an important messianic number as well. Without the anointing oil, 918. So that's connected to the mouth of the earth. Without the anointing oil, this is a phrase. When King David was looking at heard about King Saul and all that had happened, he said he mentioned this phrase about it looks as if he's not even got the anointing oil on. What's happened to him? It would appear that he hasn't even got the anointing oil on him. Moshiach without the anointing of the oil. Okay, Shomen. This is exactly the state that Moshiach Ben Yosef is in now, isn't he? In exile. He is like a worm and not a man, despised of peoples. His appearance more mad than any, 792, the mouth of the earth. You wouldn't think that this whole, that Yeshua is the Moshiach, but he is. And we can see that as well. It's not only connected to the mouth of the earth, but it's also connected up here, look, to who has ascended into heaven and descended, both Moshe and Yeshua, but they both appear as if they're not anointed as kings at this time, as it connected all the way up. And Moshiach Ben David, certainly when you're looking at Islam, you're not thinking about Moshiach Ben David. You're not thinking about anything to do with Moshiach Ben David being exiled there, but every indication in the Torah, if you're truthful and got a Hebraic mind, not an exilic mind, is revealing that that is indeed the case for all the things that I've mentioned over and over again. It's not just in one instance. I wouldn't be speaking about these things and I wouldn't be mentioning these things if I hadn't seen in the numbers this repeated over and over. And in fact, anytime you look at anything to do with Yishmael in the Torah, it will reveal something to do with Moshiach Ben David. 100%. Over and over and over again. That's why I've got the confidence to speak about it, because I'm not concerned about the Torah, the Moshiach of that in my pocket that I've got from exiled exiled mindsets. I'm interested in understanding from an Hebraic point of view the truth that is revealed in the Torah, which is the mind of YHWH. Okay, not my own exilic mind that's fueled by arrogance and ego. Moshiach Ben Yosef, Moshiach Ben David comes to 990 plus 198, which is 1188. Okay, 188, by the way, is Yaakov rectified. So Yaakov with additional vav of truth that he gets from Eliyahu Hanavi. And what is that truth? Od Yosef Chai, that empowers him. And 1000 is the Moshiach. 1000 is Moshiach Ben Yosef plus Moshiach Ben David. Normally, when Moshiach Ben David is fully rectified, so that would, in this case, without the additional Yud, that's 424 and 556. So add them together, come to 990. But ordinarily, Moshiach Ben Yosef is 566 and Moshiach Ben David is 534 when David has got the additional Yud. And that comes to 1000. So we know 1000 represents Moshiach and 188 represents Yaakov rectified. So together, Moshiach and Yaakov, Moshiach Ben Yosef, Moshiach Ben David and Yaakov, we have got 4 times 297, which is connected to all these concepts and back up to here. Concept Moshiach Ben David in exile. Not only that, the 198 is Moshe, 81 plus Yeshua, the filling out of Moshe and Yeshua, 117 goes to 198, and 198 times 4 is 594, which is the olive leaf of redemption that symbolizes peace for all humanity. 522 plus 72 comes to 594. Got the luminary again, I've already put that in. This is none other than the house of God. So we ultimately wanted to get to that place where the temple is built and is a house of prayer for all peoples. It's very much related to Moshiach Ben David. This is exile, just like Moshiach Ben David is exiled. However, this is none other than the house of God. It comes to 2,592, 2 times 200, 1,296, and we can see that's exactly the same gematria as there. So there is a link. We want to see that revealed, don't we? And then this is going back to the concept of opening our mouth, being an advocate. We have to advocate for the good that has been accomplished during this exile and really dismiss the bad. Normally we dismiss the good and accuse because of the bad. That's exile, isn't it? And that's just going to perpetuate exile, make them more and more aware of the evil and less aware of the good. We've got to alter that around. We've got to disregard the evil, because that you can't ignore it. But what I'm saying, we've come to a time of final redemption. Now we can see in hindsight everything that was is meant for good. Now we can start to petition, all right, I get it now. This exile has been very, very challenging for a reason, and YHWH has been secretly perfecting the whole of humanity to bring us to that place where he wants to finally redeem himself. Right now we start to speak good. We can advocate for good. And that's taken from Proverbs, open your mouth, and it talks about opening your mouth for the dumb and the those the less advantaged and everything. 683 up here, look, and we're all dumb to an extent because we all have not listened and heard the true true revelation of YHWH. We've been subject to very exilic forces as a consequence. So we can see there's a link between opening our mouth up and this whole concept of Moshiach Ben David in exile. he may well remain in exile until we open our mouths and advocate for all the good that has been done during this time of exile, this Edomite exile, when Moshiach Ben Yosef has been secretly correcting our faith in the name YHWH and perfecting the soul level of Yechidah, okay, for all humanity, to raise us up in Moshiach Ben David. Tophel and Levan are two the code names, basically. The two places mentioned in the Torah that don't actually exist anywhere else in the Torah, and the rabbis have said there must be code names. And I've pointed out previously, Levan can be likened to the whole system of Metatron, because Yaakov was under Levan's household. There was good that came out of that. You know, he ended up with his wives, and he ended up with his flocks and his wealth. He went there completely impoverished, and then he earned his right for his wives. But in order to get out, he had to, you know, it was very difficult for him to get out. And only when he'd given birth to Joseph did he have the power to leave Lavan's house. Then he met Esav, but he never met Esav on his own territory. Okay, he could only meet Esav in the Eretz Yisrael, and then he promised Esav, oh yeah, we'll follow you to Mount Seir very slowly, because he knew that Joseph hadn't yet reached his perfection. This is what we're going through now. We're reaching the perfection of Joseph. Okay, so Joseph then had to go into Egypt, and all the whole thing that came as of that, and Yaakov had to believe he were dead, and then so there was a whole rectification going on there. Okay, so similar, like this is similarly happening. We can't, you know, when we represent Yisrael, Yaakov, we can't meet Esav on his own territory, and remembering that Esav represents those vessels of Shalom, the body. The children of Israel represent the soul. You can't meet Esav on his own territory until you're fully rectified, till you're fully empowered with the truth, Od Yosef Chai, and all that means. That whole maintenance of his purity and dignity under intense trial. Okay, and that Joseph had to endure, and to prove that his authenticity, and to correct any defect that he had in his faith in YHWH. So once Yaakov has got that empowered, Od Yosef Chai, and all that means, then he can go meet Esav on his own territory. Okay, then there can be union between the light of truth, the light of the good inclination that represents the soul can then overpower the evil inclination, and then the light can fit within the vessels of Shalom, and there will be peace between Yaakov and Esav. Okay, so Lavan is that intermediary that Yaakov goes and gets his wife and his children, and then he obviously gets Joseph out of that. Then he goes and confronts Esav, but oh no, not quite time to settle down with Esav in his own territory, Mount Seir. We'll have to go off towards Succoth. So they go off towards Succoth, but what does Succoth mean? It means temporary dwelling. So that whole where Yaakov is kept away from Esav, in Esav's own territory, we told and indicated in the Torah is temporary. Okay, so it's all part of a wonderful process, by the way, until we're perfect. The fallen of David. So, you know, the fallen of David will be raised up, 693. He won't remain in exile forever. Okay. This is him in his fallen state, isn't it? But that fallen booth, the fallen Sukkoth, is like where Yaakov went temporarily, that will be raised up in David. Okay, and the fallen of David is really, it's linked to the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay, and Enoch walked with God, and after he had begotten Methuselah 300 years, and he begot sons and daughters, 5,464, 608, 3 times 8. So we can see that's related to here and here. Why? Because the Enoch system is very much related to this concept. You know, the Enoch Metatronic system is very much related to Levan. It's you need to be, in order to leave that, you need to be empowered with the truth, or Yosef Chai, basically. But that is part of a process of rectification that we ourselves need to go through. We need to mature to that place where we are rejecting the bad and choosing the good. Okay, and so this whole system is temporary. It's just like it was temporary for Yaakov to dwell with Lavan. Okay. Then he said to me, Son of man, can these bones come alive? And I answered, Oh Lord God, you alone know. Okay, so 459 related back up here. You know, can these bones come alive? Yes, they can. And that's very much related to the tribe of Ephraim, isn't it? But it's obviously also related up here to Moshiach Ben David in exile. Can these bones come alive? Yes, it can all come alive. And he's very much, you know, these bones of Ephraim represent Moshiach Ben Yosef that would appear to be dead. You know, so Moshiach Ben David's hope and is for the life of Moshiach Ben Yosef to be spared. So you can see how that's all related as well. Let's go and have a quick look at this and finish it off. So bearing in mind, we're still this whole rebellion against Korach. And there were this Korach rebellion, against the Torah, the Moshiach of YHWH. And there was no other prophet who arose in Israel like Moshe, whom the Lord knew face to face. So again, we're going to have a look at how Korach rebelled against this whole concept of the Moshe and the prophet like Moshe. So that comes to 7 times 383. We're going to be looking at 383. And they told him Yosef, saying, Yosef is still alive. And they told him that he ruled over the entire land of Egypt, and his heart changed, for he did not believe them. So this is Yaakov being told the truth, Od Yosef Chaim, and then being empowered. Exactly the same as that. So we know the prophet who came, like Moshe, is Moshiach Ben Yosef. Now the Lord God said, Behold, man has become like one of us, having the ability of knowing good and evil, and now lest he stretch forth his hand and take also from the tree, and that would be the tree of life. Okay, so 3,447, which is the regular and the ordinal, and the ordinal is 3 times or, 3 times light. That comes to 9 times 383. Okay, so we see that connection. And David, the son of man. So with David ben Ish, that comes to 383. If we add 3 Kalel for each word, it comes to 386, Yeshua. A great mixed multitude went up with him. So this is really pointing out that Korach is very much related to the Erev Rav. Okay, a great mixed multitude went up with him. That's 1020, which is 10 times 102 Emunah. So we understand that this is also about, we're in a process of perfecting our Emunah, and all this adversity that we face from all these different exilic forces are ultimately to bring us to that place of perfect Emunah. The purpose of the area of Rav is to build and develop complete Emunah and trust in the name YHWH. It's got an ordinal of 129, which is Yeshua in Atbash. So there's a particular cipher where the letters are changed according to this cipher called Atbash, where the Aleph becomes a Tav and the Beth becomes a Shin and the Gimel becomes a Resh, etc. Okay, so that Yeshua in Atbash is 129. It's also the ordinal of Moshiach Ben Ephraim. If we add those two together, 1020 and 129, we get to 1149, which is 3 times 108. 3 times 383, which is connected to all that. And he counted it, so this is Abraham. Abraham's very important because he's connected to the sphere of loving kindness, and this is the sphere through which YHWH will reveal his absolute oneness. Okay, this is the hidden system, the messianic system. Okay, and I've talked about this before. So we've got this Metatronic system that rules, the slave who rules, instead of the king, and the handmaid that is the queen instead of the queen. That's the whole system of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay, and that's the system with which evil can actually exist. And according to Ramchal, that's called the system of reward, what you would call the system of reward and punishment. You do this and you get rewarded. You do this, you get punished. But there is some confusion because there's got to be free choice maintained in that system. So sometimes the wicked prosper and sometimes the righteous suffer in order to maintain free choice. Okay, but that system, it creates evil, and it's for an ultimate purpose, because ultimately YHWH in his absolute capacity to reveal himself will reveal himself in a way that totally nullifies that system. Why? Because now let me just say this in a way that makes the most sense. that whole system is run what you call the system of reward and punishment. So you do this and you'll get rewarded, you do this and you'll get punished. And that is an aspect of, we have to have faith that God, that's one of the aspects of faith, that God rewards the righteous and punishes the wicked. So we have to have faith in that. That's just for us to develop our sense of faith that YHWH does reward good and punish the wicked. So that's there to really, it's an aspect of our faith that we've got to have in YHWH. However, in this system, the revelation of the name YHWH is linked to the actions of man. So this is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, isn't it? If we do good, we reveal the name YHWH within that system. And if we do bad, then we conceal the name of YHWH in that system. And it would appear when the evil increases to the absolute maximum degree possible, that the name YHWH could be completely, totally concealed, potentially. Okay, so that's that system of Metatron, isn't it? You know, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, where we're conscious of that there could be something other than YHWH, which is, and that he changes depending on how we behave. This is the system of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, isn't it? We do good and God is good to us and gives us blessing. Oh, but we do bad and he inflicts us with wounds and, you know, all kinds of things and disciplines us. But God, YHWH changes not. He absolutely does not change at all. He's not affected by our behaviour one way or another. He's always good. He can't be any other. So this whole system really denies the truth about YHWH. It doesn't reveal the truth about YHWH. It denies the truth about YHWH. But he has got a hidden system, what's called the system of perfection. This is talked about in the Ramchal's book, the Afternuvat, Knowing God's Plan, I think it's called in English. And basically the hidden system, which is really the system of Moshiach Ben Yosef, this is the system that we want to raise up, the messianic system, is reveals the truth, that there's YHWH, nothing else. And all this that has been going on is to bring us to that place of complete faith, to give us a work to do so that we can feel like we've earned the right to receive that reward of a revelation of its absolute oneness and sovereignty and majesty, you know, and he's finally king on earth as he is in heaven. And the way that he chooses to reveal that is through the sphere of loving kindness, the sphere of chesed. Okay, so he will at one particular point, when he decides, when this perfection is, when we are completely perfected, then he will reveal himself through loving kindness to us, and it really will no longer be linked to whether we've done good or whether we've bad. At the time when that perfection is completed, and all the hidden way in which he has been working through the soul of Moshiach Ben Yosef in this Edomite exile to bring the whole of humanity to a place of perfection, where we have complete faith in the name YHWH, and we have the vessels of Shalom to contain that light. Once we have done all that is needed to be done in a very secret and hidden way, in an exiled way, then he'll simply reveal himself. And it will, the system of reward and punishment will still be going on, where we are thinking, oh, if we do this, then we'll get rewarded, and then if we do this, we'll get punished. We'll be coming on, and then there'll be the blink of an eye, and he'll outpour his loving kindness through the sphere of loving kindness on whole humanity, and then we'll know for definite, oh, there is only YHWH. All this system of evil he's put in place just to keep us busy, whilst he's been secretly doing all the things that he needed to do to perfect humanity through the soul of Moshiach Ben Yosef. And we've been basically unaware of what he's been doing. We've just been so focused on this slave that rules instead, and we've thought this slave that rules was YHWH himself, and we've been busy serving a slave like slaves. And thank goodness now we can serve YHWH as Hebrews in truth, through the concept of Moshiach Yosef, through the concept of Moshiach of YHWH, you know, and Moshiach ben David is king over kings of kings, and all the perfection is finally revealed. So that's how it's linked to Abraham, and he accounted to him. Abraham believed in YHWH, and he accounted it to him as righteousness. So that's linked to Ephraim, okay. 52 is the ordinal of Moshiach, and 383 is all linked up to here. Okay, all the ravens, you talk about the dove of redemption, which is the body of Moshe, the body of the bird Moshe, the right wing of the bird Moshiach Ben David, the left wing of the bird Moshiach Ben Yosef, united together. But in exile, when we're still subject to these forces of evil, so that YHWH can operate very secretly to get all the things done in this exile to bring us to a complete faith in his name and nothing else beside him, that dove would appear as a raven. But this is actually, rearrange that and you've got aver, which is exactly the same word as Hebrew. Okay, Hebrew. It rearranges for Hebrew, so the Hebrews are hidden at this time. They probably look a lot like ravens, to be honest. But this is again connected to 322 is Yetzer, good inclination. 61 is Ani, that represents the Holy Shekinah. Okay, which is linked to the concept of Moshiach. So we can see how this is all linked together. It's wonderful. If these men die, as all men die, so that's how Korach is linked up to the Erev Rav. This is a very powerful force that comes against the concept of this messianic system, that through which, YHWH reigns. Our faith is perfected. The vessels of Shalom are able to contain that light. It's all glorious, but what stands in the way of that? Well, Korach did, because he rebelled against that whole concept. Okay, and he was swallowed whole by the concept as well. Moshiach Ben Yosef. So you can see how it's related to Erev Rav. Okay, I've got this number here. We'll be coming up soon. We've got this as well. This number here. It's going to link us back to this. This is a very significant number, 1221. So for God had taken him, that was Enoch. God had taken Enoch and transformed him into this meta system, this meta universe. That's how I ended up doing this analysis into Metatron, based on Facebook changing its name to Meta, and this whole concept of the meta universe. I thought, I'm going to start looking at Metatron now. And then when you start looking at Metatron, it takes you a while, but you start to figure out, okay, right, I get now what that all is about. And that's what I've tried to communicate to you. So for God taken him, that's Enoch, because Enoch became this meta system, this metatronic system where the slave rules. And we want the messianic system where YHWH rules through the offices of the priest, the prophet and the king, which is Moshiach Ben Yosef and Moshiach Ben David united together. So that comes to 791, but it's got a mispagadol of 1221, very significant. There's the whole concept of the Leviathan, which is very much related to the concept of Yesod and Moshiach Ben Yosef. Okay. It's unholy opposite the concept of Moshiach Ben Yosef. However, the flesh and the skin of the Leviathan, the flesh will be eaten by the righteous Sadiqim in the world to come, apparently, and the skin of the Leviathan will be put on the walls of Jerusalem, I think. I think it's in Isaiah. I did have a look at it. It was quite a while ago now, so my mind is a little bit blurry about it. But this is the unholy opposite as well, isn't it? This is the unholy opposite. The God had taken him, and then the Leviathan is unholy opposite. But the skin of the Leviathan will be some kind of illumination upon the walls of Jerusalem itself. So whatever that means, it's just part of a glorious process. Along with the whole Enoch, it's all part of a glorious process. Why? Because YHWH can't do anything other than anything that's glorious and good. So absolutely everything, even though whilst we're in exile, it causes a lot of pain. Everything ultimately will be revealed for only good. And Enoch walked with God. So again, we've got that whole connection to this Metatronic system, haven't we? 1221. But this is the wholly opposite, isn't it? That which Moshe did, Asher Osa Moshe. So that is Ein Od Milvado. All that Moshe did to descend into exile and suffer with us in order to perfect us, so that we would reach that place where we're able to say, Ein Od Milvado, there's nothing besides him. There's nothing beside YHWH. Everything works for an ultimate God. And the 123 is sets an end to darkness, Shem Lechoshech, and that is Moshiach Ben Yosef instead of Yitzhak. And Yitzhak represents the sphere of Gevurah, and Gevurah has got two elements to it: a very wonderful, zealous, disciplined, mighty side to it. You're strong to keep the will of YHWH. It's things like that. It's also got a dark side to it, a darkness and a harshness and a severity. And Moshiach Ben Yosef was instead of Yitzhak, meaning the darkness that was in Yitzhak. Yitzhak was spared, and Moshiach Ben Yosef was the whole way that YHWH allowed for that darkness to be brought to an end, ultimately to be brought to an end. And death swallowed up itself. 123 Kates Shem Lechoshek, that's the ordinal of that, comes to 1344. So that which Moshe did, he had to do to overcome this. If these men die as all men die, this rebellion. What did he do? Well, he got transformed into Moshiach Ben Yosef, and then he went and became this system of perfection that is hidden, and the system of Metatron, Enoch, is what is revealed, isn't it? That's the whole system of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If we do this, we get rewarded. If we do this, we get punished. But ultimately, the tree of life is operating in a very submerged, hidden way. The whole system of Moshiach Ben Yosef, which is system of perfection. We're all being perfected to ultimately bring us into that messianic era where Moshiach ben David reigns. Okay, so Enoch is 123 also. Kates Shem Lechoshech. He is opposite Moshe. What Moshe's doing in a hidden way, this is happening in a very revealed way. Okay, and we need to set an end to this darkness, this whole Metatronic system. We need to get over that river as Hebrews in truth. So Shmuel, okay, so Korach rebelled because he could foresee that he was connected to Shmuel, but God had taken him, Enoch, and this whole system had to come into place in order to quench this ultimate rebellion. But Shmuel is a wholly opposite to this as well, isn't he? Because ultimately Shmuel will be the prophet that anoints Moshiach when he comes. 53 there is Yeshua, the ordinal of Yeshua. It's also the ordinal of Yaakov rectified. 430 is Kates Shem Lechoshech, the initial letters spell shekel, because Moshiach Ben Yosef needs buying back, and 430 is linked to that, because 430 is shekel. The initial letters of Kates Shem Lechoshech. Yeshua was sold into slavery and he needs buying back. And I've talked about this a lot. We have got a very big bargaining power. Where do we get the bargaining power from? From the blood that has been spilt of the servants of YHWH, or all the servants of God as he has revealed them to. So the servants of YHWH, where YHWH is revealed within the letter of the law, that's the Jewish people. The servants of YHWH is revealed above the letter of the law, that's the Christian people, and the good Muslims that have died, for the sake of the name, for the sake of the light of God that has been revealed to them. Okay, lots of blood being spilled, but that blood being spilled becomes a bargaining power against the forces of the opposite side. Why? Because we're told that the luminaries, which is the Moshiach, is missing two vavs in Torah. So if you put those two vavs in, Hama'orath, the luminaries, it comes to 658 regular, and an ordinal of 73, and together they come to 731. I think we might come to that at some point. Let's have a look, or maybe not. And basically, so the luminaries corrected come to 658 regular. If you look at the word, the revenge of the spilt blood of the servants, nekmath dam, the word nekmath, revenge, comes to a regular of 590, which is exactly the same as seats, and an ordinal of 68. Add them together, they come to 658. The corrected regular spelling for Hama'oroth, the luminaries. So we know that in order for them luminaries to be rectified, the spilt blood of the servants must be avenged. And what does that mean? Go spilling more blood? No, it does not. Because the Torah way of dealing with avenging blood is compensation. And what is the ultimate compensation that we could possibly ask for? We want the bones of Yosef. In Egypt they went around gathering all the silver and gold. Okay, Moshe went for the bones of Yosef and he became richer than them all. Okay, so we want the bones of Yosef. We want this entire messianic system to be revealed. We want that entire system of perfection to be revealed, and for this system of Metatron to be no more. That's what we want. When we want the bones of Yosef out of exile this time, that is exactly what we want. We want that that's been hidden and concealed for so long, Yosef, to be finally revealed, because that is the throne of Moshiach Ben David. Okay, where YHWH is king on earth as he is in heaven. Mouth of the earth, 386. Don't know why I've included that again. Maybe it'll be off. And then we've got Abraham. So he's the sphere of loving kindness. That's where, when YHWH finally decides to reveal himself, he will not limit himself to whether man does good or man does bad. He created that system till he could go and perfect man in a way till he could receive that YHWH decided he wanted him to receive, but he gave man the work to do, and he's been accomplishing this in a very hidden way. But when he reveals himself, he'll simply pour the loving kindness out, and we will all say, "Oh right, I get it. We get it now. This evil system is temporary, and there's no amount of evil that could have possibly happened in this system that could prevent YHWH from executing his perfect will, which is to bring the whole of humanity to that place where he could reveal his absolute sovereignty and authority and echad, his oneness and his utter and absolute perfection." Okay, so that will happen through the spirit of loving kindness. He will simply pour out upon us an abundance of his loving kindness, and it won't be connected to anything that we've done, whether good or bad. It's simply connected because he completed what he wanted to do to perfect man to a place where they could ultimately receive that, and it was him in his sovereignty capacity to do that. And when we see that this occurs, and it's nothing to do with any amount of evil that we've done or any amount of good that we've done, it's simply because YHWH willed it, and that was his always will. And even though it was hidden for a time until he reached that place where he could reveal it, when he had completed all the perfection through the soul of Moshiach Ben Yosef that he willed to perfect, then he will just simply reveal that perfection to us, and then we'll say, "Oh, there's only YHWH and nothing else beside him." So it will come via the sphere of Chesed, Abraham. Abraham is synonymous with the sphere of Chesed. So we can see that this is wholly opposite. This isn't it, and very much connected back up there as well. It's all wonderful and glorious. Also, even this verse, look, Moshe and Aaron among his priests, and Shmuel among those who call in his name, the name of YHWH, who would call out to the Lord, YHWH, and he would answer them. So here's where we get the rabbis saying Shmuel is equivalent to Moshe and Aaron. Okay, so Korach came from Shmuel, but he will be perfected from Shmuel, and don't forget, Shmuel will come back and anoint Moshiach Ben David, as it was back then, so it will be in the future. So Shmuel will come back, and Korach will be fully rectified, won't he, when Shmuel comes back and anoints Moshiach Ben David. So glorious things that we've got to look forward to. So that verse total comes 2 times 1,169, which is exactly the same as Shmuel, the regular of Shmuel, and the squared ordinal of Shmuel. Added together come to 1,168. If we add a Kalel, that represents Aluf Roshel Alam, Master of the Universe, it comes to 1,169. And that's wonderful, isn't it? And then we've got this 457 here. Who's equivalent then to Moshe, Aaron and Shmuel? Well, Yeshua, Moshiach Ben Yosef, okay, which is the throne of David, because 53 for the ordinal of Yeshua, and 117 for the ordinal of Yeshua spelt out, and bearing in mind that 522 is exactly the same as the olive leaf that was in the mouth of the dove. Okay, plus the 287 from the second filling out of Yeshua. If we add them up together, 287, 117 and 53 comes to 457. So Moshiach Ben Yosef is equivalent to Moshe, Aaron and Shmuel. Okay. Also, what have we got here? The letter Ayin, which is missing from Yeshua's name, Yeshu, is the first filling ordinal, 40 plus the regular. So that comes to 130 regular. The ordinal is 40. Together they come to 170, which is exactly the same as 53 plus 117. The first and the spelling, the name of Yeshua and the first filling out ordinally. And also David Ben Yishai, 386, that comes to, which is exactly the same as Yeshua, plus 71 ordinal of 71 is Yonah, the dove, and the sign that Moshiach Ben Yosef gave. This is the only sign I'll prepare to give a wicked and adulterous generation, is a sign of Yonah, the dove. Okay, so 71, which represents 70 nations plus Israel, the 70 Sanhedrin plus Moshe. Okay, 457. So it's all utterly and absolutely glorious. Now let's see what we've got. Okay, probably going to leave this for another lesson now, but this will ultimately go, subscribe, because we're going to go and have a look at all, in the next lesson hopefully, all the places which link the Metatronic system up to the river, because it comes up in the next part of this analysis of this verse, the Lord God of the Hebrews. So I've just given you a little bit of a taster of the next lesson, what's to come. Okay, and with that I will say shalom. Please subscribe, and I hope you've enjoyed the lesson.